The following is an Operation Podcast production.
Me waking up to the fact that I was working in a corporate job that I didn't like. I was in a relationship that I wasn't excited by. I was in friendships that I wasn't filled up by. I was living this life that everyone told me would be really good and beautiful and be something that would make me happy, but I wasn't. What actually feels true to me? What everyone says I'm gonna love or who I'm gonna love to be or who I'm gonna love to be with, but what do I actually want? We're always in transition. Each person that I ask, even if it's my Uber driver, my barista, my best friend, my mom, like everybody perceives themselves to always be in transition. It's a part of our human experience to be in transition. Our souls know that there's something greater for us and there's something bigger for us. And discomfort usually makes us move. And it also causes us to question. Who am I? What am I doing here? What is meaningful to me? What are my values? What is my purpose? What is, the reason why I get up in the morning? Really at the core of life is answering those questions and or sitting with them or ruminating with them, because I really do believe that people can live a life that they want and that they love and that they deserve. I'm Krista Williams, host of Almost 30 podcast, author of Almost 30 the book. Welcome to Ever Forward Radio.
For a lot of other people, you're going to college, you're finding your first job, you're moving out. And so it's like these big life events, the transition kind of provides, if we're stepping into what, most people do of home, school, work, this proximity provides.
Yeah.
But even in that proximity, we all don't get connected. And so then you add on the whole life event of going from your 20s into your 30s, and like you step into your own more, you figure out what, your friend audit needs to look and feel like, and it becomes this whole other litmus test. And the proximity almost doesn't even matter as much, does it?
Especially with with the internet and stuff now, it's like you don't even need proximity, which is such a beautiful thing. I think it was great when I grew up and where I grew up, but I didn't have the inspiration. Like I didn't know it was possible to be a podcast host. I didn't know it was possible to make money being myself. I didn't know it was possible to build a business. Like my idea for my life, like I never had a dream for what my life would be. When I was younger, everyone was like, what'd you want to be? I never knew. I never thought. I never believed anything because I didn't see anything that I liked. So I was like, I'm just going to figure it out. And so later in life, really figuring out what I love. But when we talk about the transitions, I think it's part of the bread and butter of Almost 30, but we're always in transition. Each person that I ask, even if it's my Uber driver, my barista, my best friend, my mom, like everybody perceives themselves to always be in transition. It's a part of our human experience to be in transition. I remember when I was younger, seeing my parents and thinking that because they had a house and they had kids and jobs that their life was over. Like I was like, they're done. They should wrap it up. Like there's no more change that's happening for them. And then when they ended up getting divorced, I was like, whoa, they're going through so much change and transition. And I saw them as people. And for many of us that experience change in our life, I think some of the biggest period of change is your 20s. During your 20s is usually the time when you're getting married or you're having your first baby. The average age of the first baby now is 28.5. The average age of marriage now is 29.5. People usually have a lot of college debt. So they're working with a lot of debt and financial situations. You're probably getting your first job. You might be buying your first home. What else is happening from a brain science perspective is your prefrontal cortex is coming online. So the frontal lobe is responsible for your conscious processing. It's responsible for the critical thinking. It's really helping you to create the life that you want with the perception of, an idea of life that is more you than the programming you've been given. So for me, what that looked like in my Saturn return or my, conscious awakening was me waking up to the fact that I was working in a corporate job that I didn't like. I was in a relationship that I wasn't excited by. I was in friendships that I wasn't filled up by. I was living this life that everyone told me would be really good and beautiful and be something that would make me happy, but I wasn't. And when my prefrontal cortex gave me this ability to process and be like, what actually feels true to me? This is what I'm living. This is the programming I've been given. This is what everyone says I'm going to love or who I'm going to love to be or who I'm going to love to be with. But what do I actually want? So it's not only a brain thing, but it's also a soul thing. The soul also gives us this opportunity for that. And I was able to really take a lot of risks and do a lot of things that everyone thought I was insane for at the time, but really was just the first steps of my soul really coming online to lead my life.
I want to go back to what you said about not knowing what you wanted to do or who you wanted to be when you grew up.
Yeah.
that really hit me because I felt the same. Yeah. And I always thought that meant I was lost or what's wrong with me that by 16, 17, when you're a junior or senior in high school and you're trying to figure out what you want to do in college, where you're applying, what you want to do, that you're supposed to have that identity kind of locked in, which is pretty asinine when you think about it.
When people ask children what they want to be when they get older, it actually makes me angry. Because I'm like, what are they going to do? Account manager at a sales at Salesforce? You're like
we're already capping them. We're asking them a question without their ability to see the expansiveness of possibility, because they've got another 10, 15 years to even get to a point to where you should be able to maybe wrap your head around this reality. Mm-hmm. And, for me, I think a big reason why I stepped into the military after high school is because that's what my dad did. He was in the Army. My uncle was in the military, my grandfather. So I stepped into familiarity. I stepped into the world that was known. And of course, I had a great relationship with my father. So I was like, okay, cool. I like him. He likes this. Therefore, I'll like that too. Not the case. I didn't hate my time in the military, but, I did my 6 years, I got medically discharged, but it's kind of like it wasn't meant for me. Yeah. And so I think what I'm trying to say here is that is an okay question to ask yourself. More importantly, we need more people to ask and challenge that, because we need them to kind of come back. We need them to show all these other people, young people growing up, that it's okay to not have that figured out. And in fact, I would really encourage it.
Because it is, you said, so because you felt like you had to have it figured out, you went into the military. That was what your dad did. You kind of look around at the world around you. You're like, what is available? And what is available to me? I went into finance management consulting because I just was like, I need to get a corporate job. That's what my parents do. That's what I did. And I did feel shame when I was younger because I didn't have any idea of what I wanted to do or who I wanted to be. But when I think about that, it's such a beautiful thing, because the society and structure that we grew up in is just so limiting and so small compared to what our minds can fathom and what our souls have possible for us. Like, if I would have known as a young girl that I could make money being myself, that I could, serve in the way that I do, like I would have never been able to fathom it or think it was possible. But there probably was a part of me that, knew that there was something possible. But I think a big disservice that we do to kids and that we do to younger people is we don't help them understand their natural gifts, skills, and abilities.
Yes.
And I think that was something that I was going into the corporate world. I remember when I was applying for jobs, they'd be like, what are you good at? And I'm like, reading the job description, I'm like, I am good at Excel.
I'm proficient at Word.
Yes, literally. I is good employee. No, I would just repeat what they wanted me to be. I had no idea what I was good at, what my skills were, no one told me anything. I had no idea. And so if we're really given this deeper understanding of ourselves at a younger age, then we're able to step into the workforce or the world or life just really much more able to become who we came here to be. Because I realized in my entrepreneurship journey, which is such a spiritual practice, such a spiritual act, so deep, it's so challenging and rich at the same time, who I was by the work that I did. And now that I know my gifts and I know my abilities, I'm able to make so much more money. I'm able to make so much more impact. I'm so much happier. And so I think for anyone listening, a practice that I love to do to support people in understanding this, a few things. The first is to message, 3 to 5 people that you love. So this could be your mom, it could be your best friend, it could be your teacher, it could be your mentor, people that are gonna not be shady, not be weird. Sometimes my mom would be like, you're a good liar, something weird. When that's gonna be backhanded or weird. But asking people, where do you see me naturally excelling? What do you think I'm good at? What do you love about me? What are the things that you see in me that you love, admire, or respect? And how can I see that in myself? I also really love for people to use tools. I'm in the spirituality game. So whether it's Myers-Briggs or whether it's, astrology, whether it's human design, whether it's some sort of, Enneagram or something, I think those can help you from a starting point get language around your gifts, get language around what you're good at. Because most of the time it's the language that we need. We need to be able to sell ourselves, to package ourselves, to understand it within ourselves and then within other people. But that's something I really implore people to do, because that's been a huge support in my life.
Do you think the transition from our 20s into our 30s beyond, I'll say, quote, the obvious of maybe we're changing jobs, getting different jobs, maybe we're getting married, settling down, maybe we're moving. Beyond these kind of more obvious life events, what do you think is so unique about the 20s into the 30s transition that will either make or break relationships or even make or break this kind of bond to our own identity?
Yeah, I think because of the prefrontal cortex, you're really looking critically at the identities that you have in life, and you're really examining, okay, my dad said he wanted me to be in the military. My mom said she wanted me to be a doctor. I became a doctor. And then you're like, this doesn't fit. What is my new identity that I'm stepping into? Who do I want to be? And in your 20s, it's, the 20s to 30s and even the 30 period is a very spiritual time too. It's when Jesus started teaching. In Kabbalah, they say that, from the ages 0 to 30, you're building your vessel. And then after 30, you can use your vessel to channel the light of the creator. And so there's just this prefrontal cortex experience of you being able to process things differently and look at things differently. And there's also what in astrology they call Saturn return. So whether you're woo-woo or not, there's a lot of community that believes that the planet Saturn, when it returns to the same point in the sky as where it was when you were born, brings this sort of cosmic rite of passage. It is when we evaluate the decisions we made in our life. It's when there's a lot of breakdowns, there's a lot of breakthroughs. You might lose a job, you might, get out of a relationship. You just start to question everything. And what can be really disorienting when we question everything is it can feel scary and it can feel unnerving. But what's beautiful about questioning everything is it really gives us this opportunity to really become who we want to be and become who we are. And I know for me in my 20s, I was so unhappy. I was so lost, and I really wanted to find my purpose. Like, purpose is what kept me up at night. I would be so anxious and so depressed because I knew I came here for a reason. I knew that I came here to do something big. I knew that I came here to serve in some way, and that I wanted more for my life than the life I was living. And so when you feel that type of discomfort, and a lot of people could be feeling this now, what's beautiful about that is it's like our souls know that there's something greater for us and there's something bigger for us. And discomfort usually makes us move. It's an unfortunate fact about humans that we often need discomfort to make us move. So whether that's depression, anxiety, stress, whatever, that discomfort causes us to move. And it also causes us to question. Who am I? What am I doing here? What is meaningful to me? What are my values? What is my purpose? What is, the reason why I get up in the morning? And I know I'm being very existential here, but really at the core of life is answering those questions and not, or sitting with them or ruminating with them, because I really do believe that people can live a life that they want and that they love and that they deserve.
Do you think the struggle most people have in that kind of awakening, or once they begin to question their place in life, their identity, their purpose, like you, is it more so a feeling of lack of preparedness for just asking these questions? Or is it, I feel comfortable and confident asking these questions, but it's so much more the fear of, I don't have the answer yet?
I think for a lot of us, we don't like to not have an answer. So often, like if someone was to be like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? And we're like, and we feel like, I don't know, you feel like a weirdo. You're like, I don't know. It's like, well, what do you mean? You don't know what you're doing this weekend? Like, what do you like? You're like, I don't know. Like when we say we don't know, if someone asks you, if you ask me a question, I was like, I don't really know. There's like a confidence that you have to have because it's very uncomfortable to not know. And I think people feel better and safer by saying that they know. Krista, what's next for you in your career? Well, I've got, this thing coming. I'm going to be doing this thing. If I was to be like, I don't know. It's kind of a scary, vulnerable place to be, but it's actually very empowering. But I think most people are scared to be in the unknown of what's next for them or what's their purpose. And for me, I think in my search of purpose, it's funny because when you're searching for purpose in life, and I think a lot of people want purpose. They're like, I want to find my purpose. It's so nebulous. Like, it's so like, what do you mean?
Yeah. It's the most cosmic can of worms you could ever open.
Ever.
Yeah.
And so you are down the rabbit hole, you are on the treadmill of that type of thing. But what I've found in feeling like I deeply live in purpose is just remembering that I was born for a purpose, on purpose, with purpose. So my existence is the purpose. I'm living in purpose right now. But when I find myself living in alignment with my values and finding a way to leave the world better than where, I found it, I think that's when I feel the most on purpose.
To kind of wrap up this whole friendship 2.0 section here, getting more into like the purpose and soul-driven stuff of your work, I found this quote from you that says, quote, "Seasons change and so do your friends. Expect things to shift, but trust that these shifts are ultimately for the better. How can we develop trust around a situation that is so fragile and personal to us that is at first really so unfamiliar?"
Yeah, so developing the trust around something that's familiar. So I think that quote was really speaking to friendship transitions and changes, which I think you've had, I've had as well. Something I felt shame about for most of my life. Like I remember when I moved to LA from New York, I was like, oh, I feel so shameful that I don't have like 3 best friends that I was friends with since I was 5. And we like came and met at the lake house every year. And, it wasn't like Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants or Sex in the City or Girls or any of those like shows that we saw with friends that we're friends with for like 20 years.
I think that's also just such a like hardcore East Coast aspect.
Oh my God, that's a good one.
Yeah. I'm originally from Virginia, moved here from DC before
Where
LA.
in Virginia?
I grew up in Roanoke, Virginia,
Okay, cool.
then went to school and stuff in Richmond, Virginia, lived there for a while.
Okay, cool.
And then DC for like 4 years.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
DC's a vibe.
Yeah, very much so. But
Not my vibe, but
I
it's
hear
vibe.
the same thing from so many East Coasters of just like
That's
this kind of
so
this
true.
expectation of just like the people around us and
Yes.
how we come up and where we go and what we do.
East Coast, I think, because it's very much like the Ivy Leagues, like the rich of like type of world. It's very much about who you're connected to.
So much more interwoven, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Where the West Coast, I think, is more individualistic,
Yeah.
more like people don't care about that. They're
Yeah.
more free, whatever. So
Yeah.
maybe that was that.
I feel you on that a lot. Yeah, you're not alone for sure.
Yeah. And so on the self-trust piece, like how do we trust ourselves during the seasons? Like I think in life there had to be a moment where I just realized that like I had to determine my success. I had to determine like if I was happy in life, not having a certain friend or having a certain relationship. So I even remember this moment where I was so deeply upset about a friend situation that I was just unwell. Like it was consuming my thoughts, my emotions, my feelings. And of course that discomfort motivated me to move. And so I was like, okay, I don't want to feel this anymore. This feels so bad. It feels so silly. What can I do? And so in that day or in that moment, I had this meditation where I released all the relationships in my life. And I just said to myself, I love myself even if Lindsay's not friends with me, even if this person leaves my life, even if this person, like if all of it went away and every relationship left me and no one, decided to be my friend, which would probably never happen, but still, I would still love myself. And I think for a lot of people, we negotiate ourselves for other people. We
Absolutely.
negotiate what we want, our path. And so I've become so much more powerful and so much more clear when I stopped negotiating who I was for other people and when I let myself love myself exactly as I was outside of the approval and the acceptance of every other person in my life.
I love that for you. And I think what I'm hearing a lot of
I love that for you.
A lot. I mean, it's I can relate to it because like I've experienced something similar. And I
Really?
think anytime anyone can get to that point of releasing friendships, even like your diehard besties,
Yes.
it's this really difficult, delicate whisper of an idea that just to entertain it introduces fear. It introduces, well, why? What did I do? What did they do? Where are they? Why aren't we together? What are we doing? But if you can just like put that aside and go, what if I was without them? I think it, one, introduces a lot of responsibility onto you. Well, who am I without them? Why am I reliant? Why do I have so much of my identity and happiness and my soul's purpose wrapped up in them? I'm not knocking community. Yeah. I would love to have my besties around me all the time, or even just a little bit more, but still it needs to come back to you. You have to be able to maintain that identity and happiness without anybody else.
I see so many people limiting their power and their purpose and their success because of that, because of their perception of what other people are going to think, what other people are going to say, what their friends are going to say, what their friends are doing, what their partner wants them to do, what their parents. It's like, if you are doing that, you are never living up to your potential. You're never living up to your life. Like, to live your own unique life and path, you have to blaze your own trail. You have to do what it feels good and right for you outside of whatever people want for you. I mean, if I did what my best friend from home wanted me to do, I'd be working at the same company as her, living in Ohio, having 3 babies, living in a house. If I did what Lindsay, my best friend, wanted me to do, I would be living in Brooklyn with her and the babies. Like, every single person has a different perception of what they want for you in your life based on what works for them. Yeah. And we have to really detach from all of that to come to the truth of what we want for ourselves in our lives. And my hope and desires for anyone that's listening is to really just tune into like, what is your true hope and desire for yourself in your life? And even giving yourself the mental freedom to have these thoughts and these conversations, I think is important, because you were bringing up earlier the freedom thing, like, or the fear. So often people will have thoughts of, okay, maybe I shouldn't be friends with this person. And then the second thought will be, well, that would be bad. And you would look up like a bad friend, and that's mean. Great, cool. Those can both be true. But what's the truth? The truth is that I'm okay with or without this relationship. Maybe the truth is this relationship's good for me and I want to work through whatever this is. Maybe the truth is I do need to let it go. I think one of the most important things people can do for themselves from a mental health perspective is to create a sense of freedom and liberation in their mind. And so what this means is that if I have any thought that comes in my mind, I allow it to just kind of be liberated and be free. So as an example, if I did have a relationship that I'm questioning, previous me would be like, oh my God, if she's not your friend, you're going to look like a bad friend. Everyone's going to judge you, So I'm going to shut down that thought and I'm going to, push that down. Now I'm like, ooh, what's up with that thought? Like, what's that? Oh, I felt uncomfortable with her. I don't think she supports me. Okay, cool. Let's explore that. I don't need to like ditch this person immediately, but I can allow myself to have the freedom of every thought to play with and explore. And that sort of lack of censorship internally creates so much peace.
Yeah. Having a question about something, much less going down this, I love this kind of example, this practice of intentionally questioning yourself and your relationships does not automatically make things true. We need to like allow this grace in this gray area to just entertain these ideas, because without it, we're just going to stay the same. It reminds me of this, one of my favorite quotes, Rumi, I'm not who I think I am, I'm who I think you think I am. And so imagine just like doing that with all the meaningful relationships in your life. Imagine going, all right, who do I think Krista thinks I am? Who do I think the barista thinks I am? Who do I think my coach thinks I am? It's the 3, 4, 5 most important people. Kind of like look at what is that Venn diagram and then see, how does that land on you? Do I even identify with that identity? Does it land on me? And also, if it does, great, keep working and acting and living in that alignment. But if it doesn't, like, here's your opportunity to question it and to change it so that you can be who you want to be in the presence of the people that matter most to you.
Yeah. I think for me in my life, my parents really struggled with their mental health. We had, house was kind of crazy. And I think that created a situation for me where I sort of rejected the idea of like authority and parents from a young age. So I was like, I don't really care what you guys think of me, whatever. But
because
it was
you didn't see them as having their shit together, so to speak?
Like I just was like, whatever, I don't care what you think about me. And it actually gave me this beautiful freedom now where I'm just like, I have so much more able to be like, I don't care what people think of me because of that fact, because I didn't trust parents, because I didn't trust adults. So it's given me this like, I just care so much less about what people think of me. Not that I'm saying that I don't. I mean, I definitely do. But I think it's so interesting. So many people stop themselves from achieving their dreams because of what they think other people are going to think of them. Not even what they think of them. They actually don't even know truthfully what someone thinks of what they're going to do or who they are. And they will stop themselves because of the thought of someone else thinking about them. Like, that's so crazy. It is so crazy, this sort of prison that we keep ourselves in and how limited we keep ourselves for all of these perceptions and ideas that aren't even real. Yeah. I see it time and time again with women that I work with or coach. Like, so much of the prison that we create in our lives and the limits that we put on ourselves are truly just our mind and truly just ourselves.
Seneca, I'm a big Stoic philosophy guy.
Heck yeah, of course.
We suffer far more in imagination than in reality.
Oh, 100%. I mean, and the more we can be truthful about that with ourselves and sort of pull back the reins a little bit. In A Course in Miracles is what I love to study. In it, it says, an untrained mind can accomplish nothing. And if we don't have agency, we don't have control of what's going on in our mind, the thoughts that are kind of looping in our mind. And the way that I've cultivated that is through meditation. I've meditated for 20 years now at this point. But it's like you have to find some point where like someone's in charge, rather than the running rampant thoughts and these ideas and these beliefs and these perspectives. And until you have sort of a frame of, okay, I'm able to see Krista, the self, like my soul, this like more powerful aspect of me, the thoughts that are running in my mind, and decide what I'm going to entertain, decide what's true, decide what's not. You're just going to be run by something that actually isn't you, and you're never going to really find peace, honestly. And that was me for so long.
And I think, and I'd be willing to bet you do too, because it's a big part of your work in the book, the more close we can get to our soul and the connection to what it has in store for us and just the language that it speaks, we're going to be on the right path here, getting closer to this purpose and acting out of our true identity. So you are a soul. Define for us, please, soul in a way that you think even the most non-woo-woo person would appreciate.
So I always say the soul is like the most infinite aspect of us. It's that most loving aspect of us. I would say for someone that doesn't believe in the concept of a soul, it's always, the soul is the witness. So whenever we're even in conversation, there's always like there's something here. There's something here that's making this happen. There's something here that's leading us through life. There's something here that's bigger and greater than just the human. And I think we all sort of have a little bit of that texture. In one of the books I love called it's Secrets of a Divine Love, and it studies the Quran. And in it talks about like the fact that we want more and seek more for life is proof that there is something greater than we are.
Ooh, yeah.
And it's true. We're always seeking. We just know from a cellular level there's more. Like even the most person that doesn't agree. So whether I want them to believe in their soul or not, I want them to believe that there is something bigger and greater that is collaborating with them, that there is something bigger than their body, that there is something magical and mystical that is working with them and through them. And I think the belief in this, if we're thinking about it from a mental health perspective, for me, has given me so much peace. Even if it's not real. I'm like, it's caused me to believe that there's more positively, more freely. I believe that there's a collaborator with me in life that's leading me to more success, more peace, more love, more joy, all of these things. So whether it's for mental health or whether it's for the deep spiritual aspects of the belief of soul, we all know that there is something here. What do you, I guess just to ask you as this from a men's perspective, because I think coming from the female perspective, I'm so somatic and like spiritual, how do you see soul? It is one of the bigger questions in life. You know what I mean?
It's wild. So much of, I think, that word immediately gets met with nature and nurture, for me at least. What I mean by that is grew up in a small town mentality by a lot of people, but I'm not knocking it. I love that kind of just deep-rooted, connected to people and community and earth. But also for me, it comes met with religion. And growing up in the Bible Belt and growing up going to church every Sunday and going to a Christian school and just met immediately with religion. And growing up in a Christian household, soul meant religion. Soul meant divine. Soul meant heaven and hell. And now I had my kind of spiritual awakening at 36. And I didn't know who the hell I was. I had no identity. True identity wasn't acting out of my true authentic self until 36. And I realized that my soul was speaking to me all along. It was intuition. It was this whole feeling of coming up in teenage years of chase, like this, you connect with it, but this is not your path. Like the structure, the values, the ethics, the kind of just like being a decent human being, but this being the only way to connect to your soul and the only way to live and act in the community and the only way to like do anything in life, especially, you know, Southern Baptist kind of mentality. It's like I never really connected with it. I was just kind of going through the motions, and I always felt shame around that. I was like, why is it not like hitting me? Why is the Holy Spirit not consuming me? Why am I not just feeling the presence of Jesus this whole time? And again, I'm not bashing anybody or, you know, even my own family and upbringing, but I realized that my soul was there the entire time and I was ignoring, I was shushing it. My intuition was there just waiting for me to learn its language, to your point. And so if that answers your question.
That was stunning. Yeah. That was a stunningly beautiful, profound answer. You know what's funny is I work with speakers and coaches, and sometimes like when someone says the most profound thing of all time, it's hard to land it.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
It's almost scary.
All of a sudden I'm like, oh shit, I'm still up here. What's going on? Yeah.
It's almost scary to be like, and I knew my soul was always speaking to me. And you like drop the mic. Like it's like very powerful. Yeah. So sometimes we just kind of keep like circling. But everything you said was so beautiful. And I think that's the thing that's so I wouldn't say hard in my work, but confronting at times, because I've moved out of belief that the soul is related to religion and God is outside of religion for me. You know, the way I work with God and the soul is completely outside of religion. I grew up very Catholic. We were, you know, I was very much conservative area of Ohio. And so I understood the soul through church. I understood God through church. And I almost had to take like a spiritual act of rebellion to reclaim it for myself.
Ooh, what do you mean by that?
And it was just like, so I was in my early 20s and I was deep in the spiritual game, which meant I was like doing the crystals, the healers, the teachers, Akashic records, like all the everything, spiritual materialism consumption. Because I was, you know, that's part of the podcast. And it was fun. It was beautiful. I'm not saying that none of that stuff works. Like there's so much of it. But I remember in like 2020, I started to work with this coach and we worked together for a few years. And he started to really bring God in the room. And I remember just being so like angsty and like so like angry. And I was like, this is so lame. Like this is like annoying and losers. And I just like my inner teen was coming out and it was just like so against it.
It's that word, right? It's that word. Yeah.
And for so many of us, we have religious trauma. We've been told, for many of us, again, not everyone, that God is here to punish us, that God does not love us unless we do these things, that we have to live up to this standard set and ideals that is almost impossible, and that we have to find the love of the Creator through these things. And for beings that want to be deeply loved unconditionally, that hurts. And it hurts to sit in a space like the church. This is what felt like for me in the church. Really cold, really isolating, really disconnected. I had to tell some weirdo in a box that I had stolen my sister's clothes, and then I had to go do Hail Marys. Like it all wasn't making sense to me, you know? For kids, it doesn't. And so the rebellion part came in with questioning all of that. Who says that I have to go through someone to get to God? Who says that God doesn't love me unconditionally? Who says that I have to follow these rules to be, you know, accepted and be sinless and go to heaven? Like, who is telling me that? Like, whether it's religion and spirituality, or whether it's entrepreneurship, or whether it's health and wellness, like you have to question everything you've been taught, everything that you believe, all of these things, because that's how you become who you are. And that's how you sculpt agency. And that's how you become a free person. And so I was acting with this programming. And once I liberated myself from the programming that I've been told and developed my own relationship that feels unique to me and special and freeing, my whole life changed.
Yeah.
And I became someone that now believes so deeply in a deeper guidance outside of me than just myself.
It all comes down to language, doesn't it?
Don't get it started.
Oh, we're gonna start. We're going there. We're going there. And get ready. Language, I think, allows us the space and understanding to finally meet at the same point when we're met with, again, nature and nurture. What I mean by that is, for me personally, I want to ask you.
Mother and father to me.
Yes,
nature,
yes,
nature,
yeah.
Father.
Absolutely. It took me until my 36th year of having the spiritual awakening, of understanding what spirit meant and how connected to it I was already. I just needed to, you know, allow it in the same room as me. And then also that, you know, spirit is God. God is spirit. And so for me to understand just there's a different word for the same feeling that we're talking about with other people allowed me finally to hold space for people when they would say the G word, because I had such a disconnect to people saying God this, God that, and I immediately just shut them down.
Yeah.
And I was missing so many points and opportunities and just relationships. But now when I hear that wall is gone and I can just go, oh, soul, oh, spirit, oh, you've tapped
Universe,
into your divine.
creator.
Exactly. Yeah. And so talk to us about the importance of language around our soul connectedness, because another quote from you, I think from the book here, is your soul speaks no other language than the one you need to hear. So what language does your soul speak, and how have you learned to not only hear it, but to truly understand it?
I think you mentioned before when we were speaking that your soul was speaking to you the whole time.
Yes.
And that you were shushing it. And so the soul is always there in our life. It's our collaborator. It's the one that's like, go left when, you know, and then we don't go left and we get in a car accident. You know, it's those tiny moments. And I pray for each and every person that they have moments where their soul has spoken to them and they have listened. And I believe that the soul of each and every one of us is speaking to us differently and uniquely. You know, yours could be through nature. So many people, they have this deep spiritual connection to nature, through a tree, through an animal, through a plant. It could be through your child, you know, through the child's eyes, or through art or creativity or music. You know, for me, my soul speaks through people. I think growing up in the church too, I was like, okay, God, the way that God speaks to me is he is an old man, and I'm going to hear an old man's voice, and he's going to say, hey, Krista, this is what, I had this totally warped idea. And now I know that God speaks to me through people. Like I'm very open. I talk to anybody. I'm a conversationalist. Everybody's going to have a conversation with me. But so when I'm talking to someone like a stranger, the other day I was on a flight and I'm sitting next to this man. I'm working on my computer, and he's this older man, and he's in the middle seat. I'm on the left seat, and he looks over at my computer and he just goes, everything you touch turns to gold, doesn't it? And I was just like, that is not a normal thing for a person
just like
to say.
Out of the blue, that's his conversation starter.
Out of the blue, he just points. He's like, everything you touch turns to gold.
Huh.
And it's because I'm available, because I'm receptive, because I'm open, and also because I have the belief that God is going to speak to me through people. So that's how my soul signature works, is through people. Again, you could get messages through, being in nature, through writing, through art. Like your soul finds the way to get through to you, whatever that is. And so the more open and the more curious we could be about when we've heard messages, the better. And I just have to bring this in the room that as far as it relates to language, with spirit, soul, universe, one of my favorite books is The Hermetica. It's by the 3 initiates. And in it, it talks about, it uses the word atum for God.
Atum?
Atum. Because God is such a charged word. And this book is very old.
Atom.
It's called atum. But they say atum, but it's called atum, but it relates and correlates to like an atom.
Okay.
And even in, the Quran, there's like hundreds of names for God. In the Bible, there's tons of names for God. There's tons of names for Christ. And it is because these words can carry so much weight and have so much language. And so there is a truth to like that electric feeling of a word bringing up something for you, which I think is so fascinating. And I think last thing about the spiritual rebellion, I just wanted to like kind of own that like electricity and just be like God and just like kind of like bring a little bit of that zhuzh.
Speaking of electricity, you talk about how your soul is your most, quote, electric collaborator. What do you mean by that? And what does that look like, feel like in everyday life?
Yeah. I think for the soul being your most electric collaborator, what you're going to create in your life that is soul-led is going to be the thing that is going to be the most fulfilling, nourishing, exciting, and expansive. I was in the corporate world for so long. I thought my success was climbing the corporate ladder. Again, I was in finance management consulting, like just doing that whole bag. And I'll never forget when I met Lindsay, my best friend and co-host. We were at rock bottom. We were, approaching 30, and we were scared and terrified. And we found so much peace and comfort in our soul connection and our friendship. And one day we were at Bulletproof Coffee, and, I was skipping my breakfast post Soul Cycle, waiting till 1 p.m. to eat my intermittent fasted meal. I was having my butter laden latte with like 400 grams of caffeine. I was tweaking. So it was probably the tweaking of the Bulletproof latte that led me to say this.
That shit's gnarly.
It was so gnarly, bro. It messed me up. I was like, hey, would you ever start a podcast? I had loved them. This was back in 2015 at this time. I was like, love podcast. She's like, yeah, sure. And the journey of Almost 30 was the most soulful experience. I had no intention for an outcome. I had no intention to make it a business. I had no intention that it would be what it is today, but it was my soul that led the way. And I think for anyone that wants to start a deeper relationship with their soul or start a collaboration, I think first just opening up the possibility and even just saying like, I'm open and available for a soul collaboration. I'm open and available for an experience that feels connected and deep. Like all you have to do is make yourself available. You don't need to do rituals or go on a retreat or go to India or do all these crazy things. Just truly setting the intention to be available and allowing yourself to receive whatever it is, the guidance that you need the best.
Okay. To kind of piggyback off of that, is it enough to just acknowledge our soul and to sit in the presence and kind of, maybe lack of a better term here, wait for these downloads or this intuitive guidance?
That's a good one.
How do we actually integrate with it, or rather, how can we open up so it can integrate with us?
That's a good one. Because I think what that speaks to, that I think is such a great question to think about, is like, what is just receiving the downloads and not taking action, and what is like the taking action and where you receive the information. So I do believe that silence and quiet gives us so much information that most of us are afraid to listen to or hear. When my anxiety was just ruining my life and running my life, I could not sit with my thoughts for a minute. I was just like, the loop is here. This is so miserable. Being in my own mind was so painful.
Even being such a long time meditator?
Yeah, it was meditation was what saved me.
Okay.
Basically.
Oh, this was kind of like the introduction too. Okay.
Yeah, thank God. I mean, I didn't want to live. It was so bad. And so thank God for meditation to help me create space between my thoughts. But when we can find the peace to have the downloads, that's a really beautiful place. But I do believe that the intuition works in action. You know, finding a curiosity, like, ooh, that's interesting. That feels good. Like that kind of brings me energy. You can connect with your body. You can see what is exciting to you. You can see what you would do even if you weren't paid. You can see what lights you up. You can see what feels, you know, exciting for you. And oftentimes God's going to show you one step. He's not going to show you the staircase. And so just taking the one step towards your curiosity not only will lead you to more joy and happiness and satisfaction in life in general, but it also will lead you deeper to that soul calling.
I found personally that different forms of stillness allow different versions of my soul to speak to me and to therefore help me kind of understand a different next step.
Please tell me more.
What I mean by that is, have you read the book Stillness is Key?
No.
Ryan Holiday?
Oh, no.
Get it. Everybody get this book. Walking stillness, meditation stillness, reading stillness,
Such a good one.
sitting stillness, sitting in darkness, sitting in light, finding all these different ways to be in stillness can look radically different for every person. It's just a matter of how far, how willing, how uncomfortable are we willing to get detached from the monkey mind, our devices, other people, and to plug into source in your home environment, if your favorite coffee shop, taking a walk. Different forms of stillness introduce different ways for me to connect with soul. Have you experienced something similar? What is maybe your go-to place for stillness to better be a conduit?
Wow, I'm just really enjoying that fact and that statement about stillness. That's just profound to think about. I think one of my favorites is walking. I read this book. I need to remember the name, but basically in the book, it walked through all the greatest teachers, poets, authors, you know, minds of our time and how they walked. They just would walk. Yeah. So basically, your body is able to move forward. So you're moving forward, and your body is able to process things ever forward. You're moving ever forward. You're processing things in real time. So it's like providing this opportunity for your body and mind to be in motion, but you to still be in like stillness and quiet. So I love walking. I did a darkness retreat, and that was probably the most profound stillness that I've ever been in.
Is this like a 1 day, 3 day, 5 day?
5 day.
Ooh, wow, you went all the way.
Yeah. So it was in Ashland, Oregon. It's called Sky Cave Retreats. And I had heard of someone doing a darkness retreat on a podcast. And, you know, I told God, I was like, you know, if you want me to do that, I will. And the next day, the founder emailed me.
Shut up.
I swear to God.
No way.
Yeah.
Damn.
But it's funny because it's like, it wasn't like I was like, God, if you want me to go to Fiji on a 5-star vacation, I will. It was
Tony Robbins emailed me the next day. Come to my island.
Literally, I got a check in the mail, baby. God's like, you want to go in a cave for 5 days? I got you, fam. Like, I will put you in the middle of nowhere in that cave.
That's crazy.
And so the next day they invited me, and I went, you know, a few weeks later to sit in a cave for 5 days in pitch black silence. 5 days or 4 nights, 5 days, 5 days, 4 nights. Honestly, time doesn't exist when you're in that point. But being in that type of stillness and darkness was the craziest experience of my life. I've done so many different things that have pushed my limits. That was like the most psychologically intense thing of all time. But what it taught me was I met myself in a way that I've never met myself before. Like, the intimacy that I created with myself and the spaciousness that I created with myself, because you can't see your hands in front of your face like this. Like it was the pitches, so like this. So technically it's like my body didn't exist.
Oh, wow.
You're so disoriented. You're, because of the circadian rhythm being so off, you have a overproduction of melatonin. So you're almost having like a trippy experience. You're releasing certain types of hormones that are just really kind of creating this opportunity for you to connect deeply.
And would only happen in that environment.
Yeah, only happen in pitch black like that. And also there's no Wi-Fi. It's middle of nowhere. I'm not interacting with anyone. I'm not talking to anyone. Like, it's just
You're eating in the darkness, drinking in the darkness.
Yeah.
Man.
So they basically each day at one time a day, they would bring food to you, and they'd put food on one side of a door and then close the door, and you could open the door and stay in pitch blackness on the other side. And so he would check in once a day. He would like just make sure you hadn't like off
cracked.
yourself.
Yeah,
like you hadn't gone insane. And he would check in on you and be like, hey, you know, like what's going on? And I told him at the beginning, I was like, I am absolutely going to be completely honest with you about this process. I'm not like, it would be actually psychotic if I was trying to perform for this man that was like on the other side of the wall. So I was like, I'm going to go all in and say whatever I'm feeling. So I was taking him through it. I'm like, am I doing this for you? Am I doing this for me? What am I trying to prove? Like,
what does it all mean, Basil?
I was like, I remember my first day. So basically you go to sleep the first night, you prepare through some healing sessions and like some therapy work. You go in the first night. So I slept the first night and then you wake up in the morning and that's technically like the first day. And so I remember the first day, I'm like bored as shit. I'm like, oh my God. Oh, what am I going to do? I'm stretching, I'm foam rolling, or I don't know if I'm foam rolling, I'm stretching, I'm like meditating, I'm taking a bath. There was a bath. So I took hot, cold baths like the whole time. And I remember getting tired and I'm like, perfect. I made it through the first day, like great work. And I got into bed and I was about to fall asleep. And I'm like, oh yes, I did it. Like this was amazing. And he knocks on the door with the food and I'm like, this effer. And I was like, yo, Scott, you need to come earlier. It's bedtime. You just woke me up. I was about to fall asleep. Like I made it through the day. Like I crushed. And he's like, it's 3 p.m.
No.
And the anxiety that I felt I have not felt anxiety like that in years. I was like, I'm a trapped prisoner. I am never getting
this is solitary confinement.
Solitary confinement. I'm going insane. I was undone. And I had to process it with him. I had to process it with myself. I had to really, there's nothing that invites you to be with yourself more than being in darkness. And I was like, oh my God, I really, 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 really struggled that first day. And then I sort of got into my rhythm and had in my acceptance of it. But it was interesting.
Look, I'm all for a lot of different things in the biohacking and wellness and spiritual world, but certain things do not speak to me. Look, I love darkness for like sleep and all the things, but 5 days solitary confinement, basically. Maybe not yet, at least, but like I'll live vicariously through you.
Oh no, you don't need to live vicariously through me. It's like I just love to see like what's possible with life, and I love to push myself in whatever that is. And that was it. And I wouldn't do it again. I mean, it has a great benefit for people. It's funny because I did it with two of my friends, Aaron Alexander and...
I was going to say, I saw Aaron post something about this. Yeah. Was that the same place?
Yeah. Okay, we did it together. And then Hannah Eden. And it was so funny because we came out and I was processing grief during a lot of my time. So I came out, I was like, yo, I had been wrecked. I was bawling the whole time. I was like, just unwell. Hannah's like, that was amazing. I would stay longer. Aaron Alexander's like, this was my routine. Get up, 50 push-ups,
of course,
30 burpees.
Yeah.
And
he probably brought his own resistance bands in there.
No, his was like a workout camp. And he's like, then I would do a comedy set for an hour. Like he would like do stand up to himself. Like he would play the drums. Like he had a whole, like we were just doing our own thing in different ways.
I fully believe that for him.
It was like, I was like peeing my pants laughing. He said that at one point he had brought a flute to play music.
So you can bring in stuff to like
instruments,
occupy your time. You're not just like totally left
So you can bring like workout stuff and like instruments. So he bought a flute and he's like, I was playing the flute and there was a point where I started to play too good and I got a little scared. He was like, it got creepy. I know, because you're like, it felt like you're like summoning. I remember last night.
You're like channeling somebody.
The last night, so it was fine for the 5 nights, and then you come out of the darkness and you integrate there, and then you stay for another night and leave. That last night, something weird happened, and like the energy shifted in that room, and I was like, this is scary now. It was weird. It was weird. The first day that I woke up in the morning, I'll never forget. It was pitch black. It was my first day, and I looked over at the dark, and I swear to you, the darkness was looking back at me, and I was like, hello. And it was like, what are we going to do?
I've had that usually after a few grams of psilocybin.
Yeah, no, but, for real, it felt like that.
Damn.
Felt like that. No drugs.
This sounds like the next season of Yellow Jackets.
I know.
Or something.
Have you talked about your spiritual awakening, by the way, and like explain that?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, I did. I don't do a lot of solo episodes on the show, but I did do a couple when that happened.
Was it plant medicine or?
I went through ketamine-assisted psychotherapy.
Cool. Mm-hmm.
And that really cracked me open for PTSD and connection to the soul.
Oh, bless.
And that was, I first kind of got into like deep mental health work 2020, 2021, kind of like at my wit's end with a lot of stuff. And then got into ketamine assisted psychotherapy, then psilocybin, MDMA. And I've done, I think 2 or 3 solo episodes about that.
Cool.
And it's just like, it's wild to say out loud. I didn't know who I was, or no.
I totally know.
I knew who I was, but I did not allow that version of myself to be fully expressed all the time, no matter where I was or who I was with, until I was 36 years old.
Yeah. That makes me emotional. That's just so,
it still gives me goosebumps. Yeah.
It's just like so, and you know, I'm in this moment in time, I'm the fullest expression of me that's possible. And I can't wait to see that continue to express and evolve and grow. And I hope that for so many people, because so many people just hide and like keep themselves from their fullest expression. I work with women to be more fully expressed because there's so many ways. But I mean, men just have another layer of that I feel like is just
there's more than one. There's more than one, trust me.
Yeah. It's just heartbreaking. And I work with men. I only very rarely I work with men, but working with men is the best because you tell men to do something, they'll do it. Women will be like, they'll make stories, they'll fucking do something. Love women, it's my work, but like we'll make excuses for everything. Men will always do it. But I have found that men just have such a tighter grip on themselves, and it's really hard to see.
It was the grip. There was a lot of other work that had to come before and after that, but it was the grip on my identity and the grip on my life and the grip on the version of myself that I thought I had to keep allowing to show up that I had to come to terms with. And by letting go of that grip, it allowed everything to happen. And every form of any version of happiness in my life that I thought I wanted or maybe even didn't deserve to like actually come into play.
Yeah, because it's like you have to be this person to receive love or to be this thing. Yeah. What was the old version of you?
It was, this is right, this is wrong, this is up, this is down, living out of just pure discipline because it's what I was always told to do or told what was right. Again, a lot of that was nature and nurture. A lot of that was just growing up in a very small conservative household, Christian school, and then of course the military. You know, I was just used to only ever getting orders and following orders without question. And then a lot of military people don't realize this, but when you transition out, that is still very present in your life. You are just acting because someone told you, or you think this is what you're supposed to do, without questioning. And I struggled with questioning. I was like, it's wrong of me to question. It's wrong of me to question what I want from my life because who am I? I'm not in charge. No, wait, I actually fucking am in charge. And like, of course, there's a delicate balance to that. And I can't just run rampant on society, but I first and foremost am in charge of my life. And when I allow that authority to be present, all the other right choices fell into place. It's like, again, go back to intuition. And for me personally, acting out of integrity, we always know what to do. And I could let go of all these other ways of being and acting and just allow me to just be me.
It's so beautiful that you bring this online because, my work again is mostly with women, but I just want so badly for men to feel the texture of a deep connection to something greater and a love of something greater. And, you know, when we all can loosen the grip on who we think we should be and really allow ourselves to be, it's such a beautiful thing. And I feel like men are so worthy and deserving of softness and tenderness and love for themselves, love for others. And I just deeply appreciate it, and I'm grateful that men are open and available to speaking about this now because I felt like it was so female forward for a long time. Sure,
yeah. And it's a whole nother world to tap into for a guy of tapping into the feminine energy and allowing yourself to not know what to do or to not have, your marching orders, so to speak, not have the answers to your point earlier of just going, I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah.
As a guy, I didn't realize how difficult that was for me to vocalize or even to sit with, because as a provider, as a small business owner, as a father, as a son, as a brother, all, that's met immediately with, again, the language and preconceived notions of this is the answer I'm supposed to have. Yeah. But learning to sit with that, back to the stillness part, like every answer just came to me.
Wow.
Every answer. And now here I am pushing 40. It's been a 3-4 year journey of like building it. But, it makes sense. If I was acting in a way to be this version for somebody else and of somebody else for 36 years, just because you have this awakening or this epiphany, this moment, it doesn't guarantee you the answers or every step after that.
Yeah.
4 years in the making now,
Yeah.
I'm much more in tune with this, and I still feel like I'm building, but like it happens a lot more fastly.
Were you married then before this awakening?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did that shift the relationship?
Was I married before the awakening?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Had been married for like 2 or 3 years at that point.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have shifted the dynamic.
It did, but here's the cool thing about my wife.
She's amazing.
She is amazing.
She's amazing.
Thank you. Last time we saw each other, she was pregnant.
Yeah,
that's
she
right.
was.
Yeah.
I know. I want to talk about fatherhood.
So what's really cool about her is that she had all of this, and this is, I'll probably get emotional about this, but the capacity, once I had my own awakening, not only did I realize my own capacity, my authority and permission to be who I wanted to be, it gave me this completely different perspective of the capacity that she had for me, that she was holding for me. She was just waiting for me to get there. And it's so true to her because she's Iranian American and she goes by May, her middle name, but her first name is Mastane. And in Persian Farsi, that means spiritually intoxicated.
Wow.
And to know May is to know that she is spiritually intoxicated. And so once I kind of crossed the threshold, so to speak, she was just like, she didn't say this, but she was like, I've been waiting. I've been waiting. And it allowed me to see her in a different light, and allowed me to see her see me in a different light. And it made everything so much easier.
God, isn't it just
so much easier?
What an honor for her to allow you to, that makes me emotional thinking about, she allowed you to have your process.
Yeah. She waited, she held space.
That is so honoring. Like in my friendships, in my relationships, like I went through a divorce, and I think so many women of my best friends like honored my process of seeing the patterns I was seeing. We were stuck in a really toxic pattern, and seeing the patterns I was seeing, but allowing me to move through it on my own. And it's such a beautiful thing, like an act of love for someone in your life to be like, I see the best for you, but I'm not going to force it. I'm just going to hold the vision. I'm going to love you as you are. I'm going to love you in this version and your exalted version. And I'm going to trust that you're going to be in your process. Like trusting someone in their soul's process is just the biggest gift.
I feel like she definitely knew something that I didn't. Because I think I can kind of see maybe where your question was going. Imagine having a partner. Imagine being married to someone. You have this version of yourself and of themselves, and you're in this union, and then all of a sudden, the spiritual awakening, just this other identity comes on board. It can totally change that dynamic. But again, she must have known something that I didn't, to go, like, I believe and I see that in you, and know this is going to happen for you so much. And even if it doesn't, I'm willing to just be here with you without it, kind of thing.
Which
so
is huge.
that could wreck marriages. That could wreck any relationship.
Yeah. And that's true love, is loving someone. I think a lot of people get into relationships with the idea to change someone, they're like, oh yeah. But it's a challenge though too, because you're like, am I dating potential? Like, am I like kind of like the balance? You have to really accept someone as they are. And I'll never forget at the end of my marriage, I was doing my own work on things, and I was like wanting him to do his own work. I was wanting him to do his own work, therapy or coaches, whatever. And I know everybody. I got the Rolodex of the century, just being in the community I am and doing the work that I do. And I was like, okay, I have all the people like doing all these things. And it was like a few weeks and he wasn't doing any of it. And I just remember being like, oh yeah, that's because that's not naturally him. He doesn't want to do that. He's not interested in that. And the person that I was loving was someone that I was trying to make be more like me and be more on the same path and be interested in growth and all of these things. And that's just not him. And so I wasn't even loving him as he was by trying to make him who I wanted him to be. And the more that I could allow him to just be who he was, the better our relationship was, even as friends or even in past the romantic part. And so I just think it's such an honor that your wife had that for you. And what a beautiful thing that you can bring this deeper texture to your relationship now, especially as a father. Yeah. And there was a whole nother level. I talked a lot about this in this solo episode because at the time, my wife is a nurse practitioner. At the time, she was a psychedelic nurse practitioner, running the clinic where I went in for therapy, where I went in for the ketamine medicine. So there's this whole other level of going in to get mental health help and being on the receiving end of that medicine and in quite literally the same room, that container, as your spouse. So you have to kind of really, at least in my experience, really let your guard down in a whole other way. For sure. Because like, what version of me is she going to see? I'm here to be cracked open by choice because I want to work on things for myself, but also for her.
but she's the one like literally in the room, literally administering the medicine, witnessing me and God knows what kind of version. It was just a whole nother dynamic.
Yeah, that's a deep level of intimacy. Yeah. I think what I've noticed in relational work and is that it's funny because, a lot of people have the experience of they can tell their Uber driver every secret.
Yeah.
You can go to a party and be like, so my mom did this and my dad did this, and never see that person again. But what happens in relationship is the deeper you become, the closer you become, the more you tend to hide parts of yourself. And so in that, you're sort of going against that perception that I need to hide parts of myself to be loved. And you're choosing to walk yourself through, I'm going to let myself be fully seen by my wife and fully seen by my person. And I think in relationships, people just being mindful of that, of the parts of us that hide and the things that we avoid saying or the things that we avoid doing, or when we're avoiding touch or hugging or loving or just being ourselves in relationship because we've been in it for so long, it can be really beautiful to find a way to bring deeper intimacy through something like that.
And intimacy with yourself.
Oh my gosh.
That was a whole nother level of, I didn't know that's what I was stepping into, of this healing journey. And I think anybody having this transition, we've talked a lot about transitions and relationships. There's a level of intimacy with yourself that also comes on board that I don't think we really fully realize or respect or honor or allow to come to the table when developing practices for furthering intimacy with other people at the same time.
So what's happening, and we can use your ketamine example as the example for people to understand that deeper intimacy with yourself, is you're saying, this is uncomfortable, I'm choosing to go. And so you're honoring this like knowance that there's something greater and better. And then you're also saying like, I'm allowing myself to be seen because even if she rejects me, I still love myself.
Oof, yes.
Even if she rejects me, I'm still here and I'm still going to do it. And so doing hard things like that is a huge way to deepen intimacy with yourself. In the darkness, I'll never forget, I was going through so much grief during that time. I had, I don't know if you've ever had this or this is like a woman Piscean thing, but I had the feeling that there was a never-ending depth to my feeling, that if I started to feel, I would never stop feeling. I would just be like a bottomless pit. And so I remember just having this grief come up, this wave of grief. And the old me would have been like, stop, don't feel it, push it down. But I was like, I'm available. I was like, let's go. Like, I'm so available for you. And that was that trust being built of like, I can hold this. Like whatever comes up, I'm here. Whatever comes up, I'm available, whether that's my soul or me, who knows? But even the grief, emotions last 90 seconds. It lasted 90 seconds. I took a nap. I ate some food. I went back to bed. I felt again. And I think when we can walk ourselves through the fire and know that we're loved through it is like such a beautiful thing.
Well, Krista, this has been fan-flippin-tastic.
Oh, it's
I
so
have
much fun.
So many other questions that we didn't get to, but I'm very happy with the conversation that we did have.
I'm so grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for riding the woo-woo wave. Thank you for being on the woo-woo train. Thank you for being with us in this.
I should have worn my beads
journey.
For this one.
I know, honestly.
After the awakening, I went to Tulum. I got some beads and the shaman chases.
We're going to be sunning our buttholes right after this here in Los Angeles. But really appreciate you guys being open-minded, and my deep desire and intention is for you to just be who you came here to be, live a life of purpose and of love, and just question everything, because I think the life that you want comes outside on the other side of the questioning.
Yes. And with that, my last question. Bring it home for us, living a life ever forward. What I do here on the show is to bring people on that I think really embody that mantra, that philosophy. It comes from my late father, to really highlight unique areas of physical and mental resilience. But I want to get your interpretation. Those two words, ever forward, what do they mean to you?
I think the ever forward for me is allowing myself to bring all parts of me along the journey of becoming the person I came here to be. So when I think the old version of me would be like, ever forward, I always have to be better. I always have to be more beautiful, more rich, more perfect, more all these things. But I'm like, no, actually, the most imperfect parts of me get to come. The little girl gets to come. The loser gets to come. Like the parts of me that I'm shameful for. So it's about bringing all parts of me through the journey to become, the most embodied, excellent version of me that I know I already am embodying in this moment. But there's so many more versions of me available.
Oof. Ooh, I like that. There's never a right or a wrong answer. I always say thank you for your interpretation.
What was the worst one? I'm just kidding. So what was the best one? What was the worst one? Who was the best and who was the worst?
It's funny. Every time I ask that question, I hear so many different answers.
I'm sure.
And I am in a different place in my life with every episode.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate them all because it gets me to kind of think differently about my own philosophy, to get me out of my own idea of what it's supposed to be. But then again, what is it supposed to be? It's just words.
Yeah.
I have a version of it, and I was, I was witness to it. Like I said, it came from my late father, passed away about 20 years ago. And I got to witness this man embody this philosophy literally up until his dying breath. And then to live a life ever forward afterwards, to your point, was just, it has to be more. I have to do more. I can go. But, lately, and I really resonate with your answer here, lately it's been being okay with the fact that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. That's kind of been my new twist on it. Yeah. And so by being present, by being grateful and appreciative and respectful of wherever I am, whatever the circumstances are, and taking ownership and responsibility of that, it then allows me to properly move forward instead of just moving forward for the sake of moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Huge. Yeah. I love that.
Well, of course, it will all be in the show notes and the video description, but the new book is here.
The book is out.
Where can my audience go to connect with you, get the book, listen to the podcast if they're not already? I mean, you guys have been crushing it for years.
Yeah, I'm so honored to be, in front of you and have, the ability to connect with your community. I know that they respect you and they love you, and it's just very meaningful, that they gave me the space and grace for this. And almost 30 is like so much of my life's work. It's really to remember that you're not behind, you're just becoming. Mm-hmm. And whether you want it for the nourishment chapter, whether you want it for the chapter on body, on purpose, on money, on relationships or friendships, we really took stories that were really vulnerable and true for us. And then also really practical exercises mixed with some insights from some of our guests from our show, people like Mel Robbins, Glennon Doyle, Jay Shetty, Dr. Mark Hyman, et cetera. And it's been just like such a gift to bring a guide for people in their conscious awakening to the world. Yeah. So Almost 30, you can get it wherever. Almost 30 is the podcast. You can find me on Instagram at It's Krista. It's ITSKRISTA. And then I coach women and I do retreats. So it's Krista.com.
Some of the best stories to follow along on Instagram, I got to say,
really?
I like to live vicariously through you so many times. You're living, you're thriving, but you're very honest, but very relatable.
Oh, that means
and I'll even say, I feel like probably most of your audience is women.
Yeah, for sure.
But as a guy, I really appreciate the language you bring to the work that you do, and the relatability. I think I love getting out of my comfort zone, and the way that you speak to your audience, particularly speak to women, it gets me into a better place to understand, I think, maybe how I'm speaking or how I'm navigating, just to attune myself better.
Wow,
basically.
That is, it's so funny. I have all my girlies and they'll DM me if I have a man, not even because it's not about sexual. It's just I'm just yes, let me, because I just am it means so much because I know it's not a natural thing to follow a girl on Instagram that, it's just to learn from. And so it's to be given that access to supporting men in any way is so meaningful. And I'm just myself. And so to hear that reflection is really nice.
Keep doing you.
Thank you.
Keep doing you. Yeah.